Hey lore lovers, my name's Eric with the Librarians YouTube channel. The recent Commander Legend set has been a windfall of information and juicy morsels for Vorthos players and purveyors of MTG lore to get their hands on. Many notable characters, creatures, and artifacts, much referred to, have finally made appearances in card form, casting light on their backstories and their personalities. One such character, and the war they created, will be the focus of our video today. It is none other than the Lich Lord, Nevinyrral, Tyrant of Urborg. But before we begin, if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, or if Magic the Gathering is dear to you, consider subscribing to the channel where lore videos are uploaded weekly. The support is much appreciated. Alright, let's dive in. Our story unfolds on the plain of Dominaria, on a volcanic and dangerous archipelago named the Burning Isles, in the time surrounding the Brothers' War between Mishra and Urza. One of these islands was a lush jungle of growth, death, and rebirth, ruled for many centuries by the Panther folk, the likes of Paraj and Lord Windgrace. But when Urza detonated the Golgothian Silex in 64 AR, the climate and weather of the plain was violently disrupted, flooding much of the island and transforming it into a fetid marshland where rot and decay ruled. The island became a rich source of black mana, attracting demons, horrors, and necromancers who encroached on the Panther folk's territory until their people retreated deep into the heart of what remained of the jungle. In the course of a few decades, the island, its cities, and its denizens became ruled by malicious, vindictive, and powerful sorcerers, necromancers, and the like, who drew from the island's black mana and frequently colluded with demons in order to attain their ambitions of lordship. For many years, the island was fractured into small territories as the powerful sorcerers jockeyed and fought amongst themselves to claim the title of overlord of the island. It's during this time that the necromancer Nevinyrral first gathered power and made a name for himself. Not much is known of his life before Undeath, or when he achieved his accolades, but he began as a humble mage attuned, like many sorcerers of the islands, to the magic of necromancy. He dedicated his life to the study of death and mastery over it, perfecting his magic and accruing a larger and larger retinue of undead followers. His fascination and obsession with necromancy led him to compile his knowledge into a large tome called the Necromancer's Handbook, as seen in the flavor text of Dredge Skeletons. Likely completed after his death and transformation into a lich, the book contains the arcane skills and knowledge of a genius mind, and acts as the standard for necromantic teachings and practice on Dominaria well into the future. Using his powers over death and political clout, Nevinyrral became a central ruling figure in the city of Urborg, constructed in a hellish landscape at the base of an active volcano on the island. The more Nevinyrral learned of death, the more he feared the end of his own mortality and the loss of his worldly gains. To this end, he consulted the demonic powers on the island and participated in a ritual that transformed him into a lich, an undead wizard of staggering power that could not so easily be defeated. This pact is illustrated in the card Demonic Lore, although the cost to Nevinyrral is unknown. With his true power realized, the lich became the tyrannical overlord of Urborg, and likely used his hordes of undead soldiers to further solidify his claim to the island by conquering many other cities. Consolidation of rulership to Nevinyrral in the city of Urborg soon led the entire island being named as such. Not one to remain content, the ambitious Nevinyrral, his cabal of necromancers, diabolists, and assassins, and his legion of undead soldiers turned their attention outward to the other Burning Isles for conquest. The equally large and largely inhospitable island of Bogarden caught the tyrant's attention, and he prepared his fleet for embarkment. The island of Bogarden, riddled with active volcanoes, choked by sulfurous fumes, and crisscrossed by rivers of molten lava, was unsettled and uncivilized. Its strong reserves of red mana fueled the terrifying dragons that soared through its skies, created the hellhounds and elementals that resided in its heart, and supplied the magic of the small tribes of ember mages that called the island home. Bogarden was believed by its people to be ruled over by deities and gods that resided within the molten mountains and volcanoes that made up the heart of Bogarden. These deities are not well understood, but their power and influence created the elementals and magic that are pervasive throughout the island. When the Lich Lord Nevinyrral and his demonic host landed on the coast of Bogarden with their armies of undead, his hubris and trespass angered the gods of the island. The war for the Burning Isles erupted in white-hot violence as the Ember Mages, dragons, and creatures of Bogarden met the rotting, necromantic hordes of Nevinyrral on the field of battle. The Lich's power over death and black mana were no match for the anger and fire that flew from the hands of the Ember Mages, who made short work of the flammable zombie hordes. Dragons ripped demons apart, necromancers stole the life essence from warriors, and blood flowed as freely as lava on the cracked earth. Likely within days, Nevinyrral's forces were diminished and driven back to the sea, where they were pursued by the combined might of Bogarden. Soon, the forces of fire invested themselves around the high walls of Urborg, Nevinyrral's final bastion and seat of power, likely aided by rivals of the Lich native to Urborg. Hellkites swept over the city, breathing flame down on the defenses, while the Ember Mages performed rituals to stir the volcano on which Urborg was settled. Pounding the ground with their gauntleted fists, the Fire Masters spurred an eruption of lava that quickly consumed the walls of the city and many of its denizens. Realizing his end fast approached, Nevinyrral prepared for one final act of spite. Every Lich has in their possession a phylactery, which holds their essence in their power, sustaining them in perpetuity. The Tyrant of Urborg's phylactery was a disc-shaped medallion held on a necklace around his person. In 300 AR, at the end of the War for the Burning Isles, to prevent his enemies' access to the treasure and knowledge accumulated within his palace, Nevinyrral poured all of his magic into his phylactery, known as Nevinyrral's Disc, obliterating the armies of Bogarden and everything else within a 10-mile radius. This is told to us in the flavor text of said car. The destruction was absolute, the land was devastated, the city was turned to ash, and the Lich finally met his permanent doom. But the legend of Nevinyrral was just developing. Thousands of years have passed on Dominaria since the necromancer's death, but his name is still whispered in the shadows, and his power is sought after by the most vile, ambitious mages. The Liches and overlords that vie for power over Urborg all claim murky descendancy from the long-dead Tyrant. Nevinyrral's work on necromancy most assuredly inspired the twisted dreams and experiments of Lim-Dol and other necromancers through the centuries. His destructive war for the Burning Isles has long since been forgotten. The old capital city remains in ruins beneath an Urborg volcano, and the mysterious entities that ruled Bogarden in ages past continue to exert their influence over the free island. But scholars and pupils fascinated with his life and his work continue to scour the tomes and deserted wastes, seeking to harness his legendary power. We see this represented in the card Magus of the Disc, whose name and ability hearken to Nevinyrral's phylactery with his devastating capabilities, the use of which may very well be illustrated in the card Barren Glory, whose chilling flavor text tells us the consequences, wiping the world clean and utterly barren. Although the plane has healed over the thousands of years since Nevinyrral's death, many Dominarians still shudder at the mention of the Lich Tyrant, whose essence may yet be preserved, waiting to be discovered by the inquisitive and the foolhardy. Thanks for watching this video on Nevinyrral, the Tyrant of Urborg. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video, and don't forget to subscribe for weekly lore content. And now I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Nevinyrral, and which legendary creatures from Commander Legends are you most excited for or want to learn more about? I also want to give another shout out to Marco Marin, an MTG enthusiast and aspiring illustrator for Wizards of the Coast. I'll put a link to his portfolio in the description, so be sure to check him out and give him some love. References used in this video can also be found below. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.